So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today in the 7th webinar of Filaha Innovation Program. We're very glad to welcome today our guest Kizito Odhiambo, who is an entrepreneur. He is a CEO and founder of AgriBusiness, which is a company that started like a startup, like most of you want to work on. It started like almost 4 years ago, and it is based on providing farm-level intelligence based on local and remotely sensed geodata. I'm sure Kizito will share more about this startup, about his journey. So please feel free to interact with him and gain most knowledge and positive experience from him. Thank you very much. And Kizito, thank you for accepting the invitation to share your experience with us today. And let it start. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Manal. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from wherever you're joining us from. Happy to be here with you today. My name is Kizito Odhiambo, originally from Kenya. And before I start my presentation, maybe just a bit of a background about myself. I have a background in electrical engineering and information technology, focusing on sensor technologies from the University of Darmstadt in Germany. So I've been living and working in Germany for the last 10 years, and that's where I have been doing most of my work. And yeah, I have brought with me a short presentation, which I would like to share with you to just introduce AgriBusiness, what we are doing to you, and hopefully then from that have an opportunity to interact with you, get your questions, and I'm hoping that the session is going to be as interactive as possible. So let me just start by sharing my screen. Yeah, perfect. So I want to talk to you about AgriBusiness. AgriBusiness, Bora is a Swahili word for better. So the idea here is, how do we make agriculture better? And like I said, my background is not really in agriculture, but in technology. So the question that I've been asking myself over the last 8 years working with smallholder farmers in Kenya is, how can data, how can technology support agribusinesses? And that is where we ended up looking at how data can support agribusiness and lead to a data-driven agribusiness. So just a rapid snapshot about who we are and where we're coming from. Manal has mentioned we set up back in 2018. We won an innovation prize from the European Space Agency Incubation Center. So we got the first grant that helped us to first set up our office and start the product development back in 2018 in Germany, then moved to operationalization of our activities in Kenya as from 2020. The main products and services that we are providing, we have a one-stop shop for smallholder farmers. That means we are supporting them end-to-end from the demand aggregation for their inputs to the provision of output markets for them. We do this leveraging on mobile technology, mobile payment, and basically the information that we collect from the farmers, both on the ground and through remote sensing data, is what helps us to make better decisions, supply different stakeholders across the value chain with information and insights that they need. Our value proposition is simple. We want to be the go-to platform that enables smallholder farmers to transact with their business partners, and to do this in a way that is more affordable, more efficient, and more transparent. So, of course, with the challenges of COVID-19, we were not able to really hit the ground running as we had expected. So most of our activities have been happening as from this year. We've already set up we've been able to onboard over 40,000 farmers onto our platform, 40% of whom are women. And we're seeing that the platform is also growing steadily, and also that is, of course, something good for a young company to see that the uptake is growing. So what is the challenge? The challenge basically is we see that there is still a lot of untapped potential for smallholder agriculture. We're saying that soon the world is going to have 8 billion people. We still need to feed all these 8 billion people. And most of our activities across Africa are basically agriculture-led. Now, if you look at the productivity across the countries and the continent, there is still much that we can do. So we are just imagining what that impact would be if we can improve productivity by 30%. Now, there are many ways of doing this, right? Amidst climate change and all the challenges that are there, you could be able to do this by reducing the cost of inputs and just improving the agro-management activities of farmers to improve their productivity and reduce post-harvest losses. So we are on a mission to make this dream a reality. First in Kenya, expand to the region of East Africa, and hopefully then soon go across the African continent and also beyond. So the ecosystem that we are working in, particularly in Kenya, where we are based at the moment, is very inefficient and fragmented. We have almost 7 million smallholder farmers who grow the main crops that are required in the country. And they are scattered across the country and connectivity constrained. While we see there is a proliferation of smartphones in the country, we still see that many of our farmers, and here's the funny thing, the average farmer in Kenya is almost 65 years of age, yet the average age of a Kenyan is around 21, 22 years. So there is a big discrepancy in terms of the current farmers that we are working and serving and what the future is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. So with the market that we are operating in, we always have to be up to date and have an agile process of basically reacting in the market when we are seeing changes happening, especially when you look at the demographics. On the other hand, we are seeing that the demographic that we are working with, majorly the older generation farmers, they lack the digital tools and they're not tech savvy. So how do you give them information? How do you give them advisory and services in a way that they are used to and that will not make it very difficult for them to accept and embrace new technologies? So these challenges basically limit the abilities of farmers, one, to access finance, to actually invest in their businesses, because without investment, then you cannot really improve their productivity. And there is a perceived risk, not only at the farmer level, but even the business providers. So service providers such as banks and insurances who look at agriculture as a very risky business to actually lend to. And all these challenges basically trap the farmer in this vicious cycle of low productivity, low investment, low yield and income. So what is our approach? Our approach is basically to have a platform which makes smallholder farmers more visible, more bankable, and more accessible to their business partners. We do not want to reinvent any wheel. We just want to make it more transparent and make it easier for farmers to interact and transact with their business partners. So we are using what we call a hub approach. The AgriBusiness hub is a physical center, which I will describe in a moment, at the center of our platform. Now, we connect these farmers from the input to the offtake market. So imagine you know which farmer bought which inputs from you, and you're able to monitor their crop development during the season and then actually offer them a market at the end of the season. And that is what also differentiates us from the market, because typically, you see in the agriculture value chain that you have an agro dealer. This is a shop at a village level where the farmer can go once or twice a year to buy their inputs, and that is just transactional and it ends there. Then you have the middlemen who come in at the end of the season to buy from the farmers at the cheapest price possible. That's transactional and it ends there. The farmer in between does not really improve their productivity and does not have the opportunity to interact with the off-takers themselves. So coming in and being there in between as the go-to person helps us to standardize the approach of the agriculture ecosystem for different farmers. So At the core of our business are the hubs, which are basically the physical centers where smallholder farmers get to either collect their inputs or sell their output. These Agribora hubs are basically run and owned by local businesses, so either farmer groups or local entrepreneurs, and they act as knowledge centers so that you do not just have a transactional platform, but you also have a knowledge platform that supports activities such as extension service and also value addition, such as when the farmers bring their crops, you're able to do things such as drying, bagging, and packaging. We are happy that this has picked up quite well in Kenya. We have so far 13 farm hubs that we have set up, not only on our own, but also through partnerships. And I will talk about partnerships a bit later on in the session. So to give you an overview of how then the digital hub works, you look at how different data points can actually affect and influence activities at the field level. These include information such as weather data, satellite data, soil data, but also farmer reported data, right? So for us, we are interested to know when the farmer is joining the platform for the first time, what did they plant the season before? What did they get from the field during that season? This is information that really helps you to also look at crop and field management and look at how you can best advise farmers. So the idea is collect different data sets that are available, either open source or some of this data is captured through crowdsourcing activities that we have our own network for. So when farmers are reporting their own information onto the platform, and then using this information to develop location-based insights. And this can look very different from farmer interactions where you're able to send messages to farmers such as agro-weather advisories, to farm intelligence where you can be able to use satellite data for monitoring crop development. And this information basically helps you build a transaction history and give a farmer the opportunity to have a history they can use as an alternative source of data for credit scoring, for market linkages, and financial services. So you look at it as an ecosystem. Because the proliferation of, let me say, startups across the continent is really growing if you look at the agriculture space. So as a young person or as somebody who is trying to come in to look at how you can solve problems in the ecosystem, it becomes critical to not just try and solve one problem, because you will find 10, 15 companies which are just doing that very well. You want to look at an approach that basically brings people together so that you have a sort of a platform or a super platform that can be able to work with these different actors. Now, one key thing for data-driven agribusiness is actually knowing where the field is. And this is challenging when you have farmers who, like I mentioned, the demographics are over 60 years old and maybe do not have smartphones. So how do you capture GPS of a field where a farmer does not have a smartphone? So we are using a GPS-based technology where we have a small device with a SIM card and a GPS sensor in it. And we've been able to connect that device with basically the phone of a farmer. So a farmer can go and stand at the center of their field and basically go to their feature phone device. So you remember the Nokias and the Motorola's of the day, and basically dial a USSD code and then select Get GPS. And through the technology, you can basically ping the GPS device for its position and capture that and put that into the system for you to actually be able to start doing things such as sending localized agronomic advisory, using satellite data to look at soil moisture information, vegetation growth, and phenology analysis. So that becomes critical, because once you've done that, you can be able to do different things with the data, right? And it's not about trying to be fancy with how you can interact and do data analytics. The question at the end of the day is usually, with all this data, what is the business case, right? Now, consider you have sold inputs to a farmer in March, which is the long rain season in Kenya. And 4-6 weeks later down the line, you still do not see any vegetation growth in that field, right? You don't need to go to the field to do that. You can be able to use available satellite data for that analysis. You can be able to compare your farmer in the same location with their neighbor and look at how they are progressing. Look at if a factor that is affecting them is either soil difference because the weather is similar, or planting date differences, and how that basically can affect the yield. Because at the end of the day, you're doing all this monitoring to be able to estimate the yield that you will get from this farmer, so that you can be able to set a price with the off-taker. So there are different ways of how we've tried to put all this data together, and this has helped us basically to look at how we can not only bring in data from remote sensing technologies, but also crop modeling data, which are scientific models, to be able to do things such as yield estimation at field level, but also aggregated at either village, ward, or at a national level. So looking at all that, you can be able to develop different activities. And as a startup, we did not want to build a platform or a dashboard which has all this information at the beginning. So we did it very simply. We had an Excel sheet where we used to work with all this data. And what you can see here was the first draft of how we thought of having a crop report for smallholder farmers, and basically looking at, do we have clients who are interested in this kind of data? Are they willing to pay for it? And then once you have been able to confirm the need in the market, we went ahead to now start building the platform. So we have an AgriBora platform right now where you have a lot of things where you can be able to communicate with farmers, register farmers, look at the monitoring, the crop monitoring, the weather data on that field. But you also have a USSD functionality, which with just simple 1, 2, 3 sort of interactions, farmers can be able to opt into the platform and register for services. All this would not be possible if you don't co-create it with users. So we've had a co-creation process since 2018 when we started our company to really develop this platform with the users in mind. Basically, so the USSD platform here on the right with the farmers in mind, and then the platform on the left basically with users of the platform who are not the individual farmers, but off-takers of crops, for example. So this has been a co-creation process that has benefited from the support of many partners, many clients that we have been working with. And that becomes one of the critical points of, I think, starting your company, because these days, there is nothing new under the sun. At least before Corona, we did not see anything new. And that means that most of the things that we are trying to do in the agriculture space with data, there are many other partners who are trying similar things. And it is all about how to bring these partners together to support your work and to also bring clients on board to be able to hit the ground running very fast. I think I would want to stop there, first of all, to not just control the discussion with a monotony, and give it back to you all for questions and interactions. I look forward to that. So thank you very much, first of all, and back to you, Manal.
Thank you very much, Kizito, for your presentation and for sharing your experience. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and I will give you the order to talk. Yes, Derek, please go on.
How are you, Kizito, and everyone else in the call? So, my name is Derek from Kenya. So, the question today that I have is, how were you able to collect data from small and medium scale, small scale farmers, smallholder farmers, especially when they really do not know even the solution they actually need. given that, for example, data-driven agriculture is a new concept to them. How are you able to explain this so that they can be able to understand, then give you feedback that you need to develop your system? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Derek. Greetings to you in Nairobi. That's a good question. You see, back in 2018, our idea was that farmers would be willing to pay for agronomic advisories that are that are customized using data from the ground. And we wanted to build a technology where farmers would pay every month for the agronomic content. So we started off and we went to the field and started talking to farmers and telling them how fantastic our product is going to be and why they should actually start paying for it. And the interaction was really helpful because one, farmers did agree that yes, we actually do need agronomic advisory, and it would be best if you can tell me something that is valid for my location and not just generally for the region. But their main problem was not agronomic advisory. The main problem was lack of credit to access inputs and a lack of a reliable market at the end of the season. So almost all the farmers that we talked with, they did agree that the pain point they had was real, but was not that painful that they would say, okay, this is the most critical pain point. If you solve this, you've solved the big problem that I had. And that was our perception at that point. So as you start your company, you really need to be able to look at the challenges that you've identified where you say, my company wants to go and solve this problem. If your client sees that as the main problem they have, or is it another problem that they feel, well, I can manage with this problem. You know, there is that stone that is in your shoe, but you're saying, okay, I can still manage to walk another kilometer before removing the stone, right? So you need to identify what is that pain that farmers really have. And for us, it became actually access to markets, in both input markets and output markets. So if you look at how we have set up our platform now for the last 3 years, it has become a transactional platform where farmers get access to inputs and outputs. Now, during that process, the farmer has the incentive to give us data because we say we are going to support you to get affordable inputs in the market. But for you to do that, you need to tell us where you are. We need to know what you want to grow, and then you start collecting data. So it becomes important to look at how do you incentivize the data collection process, because it is not an end on its own, it's only a means. So if the farmers do not think that the incentive is there for them to actually give you their data, because look at yield data, it's so difficult for a company to actually get yield data from anybody. Not even an agri-processor would want to give you yield data, right? But it's critical for people who are doing data analysis with satellite data, weather data, because they want to do machine learning algorithms and all that. At the end of the day, you need training data sets. So because we were tired of begging the ecosystem to give us data, and the data was also not really very good quality, we ended up looking at having the platform where at the end of the season, the farmer can sell their output through the platform. That gives you consistently information, because you know when this farmer planted and what this farmer basically got out of their field. So what I'm trying to say is it becomes critical to look at data-driven agribusiness from the incentive point of view for the farmer. Why should a farmer give you data? The farmer will only give you data when there is the value that comes back. And the main value for them becomes the transactional level. So you either support them to transact, or you either find ways of incentivizing them to give you data so that you can link them up with that which they find more crucial. I hope that is helpful.
Thank you very much. That is very, very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Sarah, yes, you can go on.
Thank you, Kizuko. So my question is, generally in agrobusiness, we have that large farmers are more capable of paying the services. But for the small farmers, I think it's more complicated. So I don't know if you have any idea about how to face this challenge and approach the small farmers.
Yes, thanks a lot, Sarah. That's a good question because at the end of the day, the willingness and ability of a farmer to pay is so critical for your business model, right? We found out that farmers were not really willing to pay just for agronomic advisory. But farmers were more willing to pay for inputs, right? But they want you to give them inputs in a more affordable way. Let me give you an example in the agriculture space: insurance. No farmer gets out of their house and goes to look for an insurance company to buy insurance. So we actually say insurance is never bought, insurance is sold, right? And that is why if you look across Africa, the insurance numbers are below 5% of smallholder farmers actually have insurance. Right. Now, the challenge for the insurance companies, because they realized that farmers would not really just get out and go remove money from their pocket to buy insurance, they looked for innovative ways of selling insurance. So you'll see, for example, in countries such as Kenya, Uganda, you have insurance companies who have now partnered with input providers. And what they have done is they've basically bundled it in the cost of the seed or of the fertilizer. So you don't tell a farmer, yeah, you need to pay another X number of dollars for insurance. You tell them, I'm going to help you get access to inputs. So we're going to give you affordable input. And we have already costed the price of insurance in it. And that is also how we work. So if you look at our agronomic advisories, the farmers don't pay for the agronomic advisory. It's actually a freemium model. But here's the trick or the clue. Only those farmers who transact through the platform actually then get access to this agro-advisory. So you make it a freemium model, but you have a way of basically capturing that value. And that is where I see sometimes we as startups fail. We forget to look at how you are co-creating value and also appropriating that value, right? And it does not need to be a one-to-one appropriation of value. So of saying, okay, so if I come and visit you in your field, you need to pay me for the transport. No, look at the value in the whole basically value chain that you are generating. If you are transacting with that farmer at the level of inputs, look at how you can cost your value that you are adding there into the inputs, or if you are giving them access to the market, then you can also appropriate the value. Because at the end of the day, the business of a farmer is to make money at the end of the season. So from the beginning of the season, and that's like 3 or 4 months here in Kenya, for short-range crops, you are only investing in your business. So a farmer is investing from the beginning. They are investing when they're looking at how to get access to inputs, selecting the location. They're even investing in leasing the piece of land. And then only at the end of the season, after 3 to 6 months, that is when they get paid. So you as an innovator, knowing that as a background of a farmer, you want to minimize increasing the cost of the farmer additional to what they're already spending, and looking at how can you support them, and then at the end of the day capture a bit of the value at the end of the season. And that is where partnership comes in. I have seen very many who come in and say, okay, I come at the beginning and I do my business with the farmer and I get out. It does not really work because they end up failing. And that is why you will see that most of the data-driven agribusinesses that people are talking about, more than 60%, 70% are actually about advisory. And you typically would find that there is a donor behind that company that has funded them to send these messages to farmers. So there is no business model. Because if you want to have a business model, then you need to work with the partners of the farmer. And the partner of the farmer is, at the end of the day, the person who pays the farmer, and that's the aggregator. Now, if you're able to build a business that really captures that value across the value chain, then I think you're onto something. Otherwise, it becomes very complicated to look at how you can get money from the farmer. The other alternative, Sarah, of course, is to go the business to business model where your customer is not the smallholder farmer, but either then the cooperative or the bank, and you have a data-driven solution or product which is meant for them, right? So you're not relying on the farmer to pay, but you're relying on these partners to work with you.
Thank you so much, Kizito.
Thank you for your answer. We have another participant. Sheikh, you can ask your question.
Hello. Hello.
Hello,
Do you
Sheikh.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kizito, for your presentation. It is very incredible, and I want to thank you. I have a question about the weather analysis and the soil type data. I want to know how to collect data with these things, with of the weather and of the soil. It is physically, or you use an API to get data.
Yeah. Sorry, my Teams always wants to switch off my video. Yes, thanks, Sheikh, for the question. So right now we are leveraging a lot of remotely sensed data. The beauty is that there is a lot of this tremendous improvement in the quality of data, both spatially and temporal resolution of data is getting better and better. And I'm talking about open source data, or just first of all. So we have worked at the moment mainly with open source data. So we have been using data that is coming from the Copernicus services of the European Space Agency. There you get high resolution data, but for weather in particular, because of the microclimates in Africa and in Kenya in particular, we have also worked with commercial weather data, which have spatial resolution of about 9 kilometers. So working with partners who can provide you such kind of data becomes critical. And we are happy that we also have such partnerships already up and running. So at the formative stages of your company, you don't want to spend thousands of euros buying data, but you actually want to look at how you can create a win-win situation for your partners. So you always have to look at what are you bringing to the table for these partnerships? What can they learn through the activities that they do with you? For soil data, we also have access to remotely sensed data, which is at 30-meter resolution. So that is also quite good for smallholder activities. And to support that, we work with local soil testing companies who actually can provide that service to the farmers. So when a farmer requests for, and that is now not for every farmer, you do not need every farmer to do the soil testing. You can then be able to build your algorithm to basically look at how to interpolate the data. So at the moment, we are using mainly remotely sensed data, both for soil and for weather, but we are also looking at how we can, we also have weather data that is coming from commercial service providers.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Kizito, for your presentation, for sharing your experience, and also for answering the participants' question. And let's see you all next week in the next webinar. Thank you very much for your presence, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Goodbye to you all.
Goodbye.
Thank you.